This is Catherine. She volunteered to be my lovely apprentice for today. She's going to give me a hand, and we're going to try to get the Cutless bearing swapped out on BA, or at least get it out anyway. We've got a bunch of tools laid out here to try to get as much stuff ready before we get in the water.
Get in the water first, and then you can hand me the bucket of tools, but like get my pins on, and then I'll just hand it.
So we're working here at about 12 feet of water. It's a little overcast today, so the visibility isn't the greatest. And it's a grassy bottom where it's a lot of silt and muck underneath the grass. And if I were to drop something here, there is no way in the world I would ever find it again. So the first order of business here is to chip off a little bit of concretions that have built up around the shaft nut. It's not too bad, but it definitely requires some cleaning off before I can get a tool on it. Go ahead and step this up so you can go ahead and not have to suffer and watch me get this completely cleared off. And I was also having a problem here with my regulator. It's just purging air. It's kind of driving me nuts. Besides wasting air at the same time. Here I'm working on getting the cotter pin out. I was actually a bit surprised to see that this didn't have a castellated nut on it. There's a main nut, and then there's a jam nut, and then there's a cotter pin that goes through the shaft to prevent the nuts from coming off the shaft. But normally you would have a castellated nut there where the cotter pin would go through to keep that nut from moving at all. I mean, this works, but certainly a castellated nut would have been a better option here, I think. So Catherine and I had some hand signals, predetermined hand signals made up for some of the tools that were left in the whaler that I didn't want to bring into the water if I didn't have to. The wrenches I had were not large enough to take that nut on, so I sent her back for my crescent wrench, and she quickly brought that back. And I went ahead and busted off or broke the nuts free. This was Catherine's first time ever filming underwater. So aside from helping me shuttle tools and things that I needed, I think she did an outstanding job of filming, especially being her first time. Couldn't really ask for much better, I don't think. So she's also trying to learn too how to maintenance boats. And here I'm trying to explain to her about the key stock that's in the shaft that keeps the prop from being able to spin on the shaft. And that's also one of the pieces that I'm most concerned about losing when I take the prop off, is that key stock as well as the nuts. I've already got the nuts and the cotter pin secured in the bucket. Now here you can also see, I was trying to show her, this is the reason why I was doing this. Right there is the rubber insert inside of the Cutless bearing, and it's backed out of the bronze tube that is secured inside the strut, and it's backed out all the way up, tight up against the prop. And I wasn't sure if my proper prop removal tool was going to fit around that or not. In the past, when I've cleaned the boat bottom, I'm always inspecting this, and it's usually been stuck back like maybe an inch at the most. I've ever seen it back, and I can usually push it back into place no problem. And this time it's been back for a while. So I was trying to get it pushed back into place, and try as I may, it really wasn't going. So next I figured, well, we'll move on from that and see if the prop puller would actually fit over that rubber portion of the Cutless bearing, and if I could get the prop off without screwing around with that right now, which thankfully it did just fit over that. Ever eager to help. Catherine's trying to help me out here, but this is a one-person job where you're trying to get the prop puller centered and aligned properly. It's difficult enough with one person manipulating it, and if you have two people trying to do it, you're just fighting one another. This isn't my first rodeo ever pulling a prop off the boat, but this is the first time I've ever pulled the prop off the VA, and some of these things I've had to really wrench down on hard to get them off. And thankfully, just a few turns on and pop, that sucker came right off. Well, I was really happy I wasn't going to have to really put a lot of force on that. there's that ever important piece of key stock, and that thing came right out easy as you please, straight in the bucket. Didn't want to lose that. Figured it'd be hard enough to find another one. Now I handed that prop to Catherine to bring back to the whaler, and I don't think she really expected it to be that heavy, and that thing took her straight to the bottom. I gotta give her credit though, she just took it right off and didn't skip a beat. She got back to the boat, but boy, I know she was really shocked and surprised that prop took her straight to the bottom like that. So now I'm trying to look for the grub screws. I know there's got to be some grub screws in this strut somewhere, and I've never had these out. I've never worked on this on the strut on BA before. And the other problem I have is I suffer. I have a terrible case of 40itis. I cannot see for the life of me up close without cheater eyeglasses. So I'm really just having to feel as best as I can, clean this area off and feel as best as I can where those screws might be. And I'm thinking they're going to be on this side. I don't know if they'd be on the side, on the bottom, on the other side, but usually they're on this side where I'm starting initially to clear off. And it took a while, but eventually I did find them. Now at this point I'm just kind of fumbling around. I can see just two shiny little dots in front of me that I would suspect are two stainless steel Allen grub screws. And I'm trying to insert an Allen wrench in there and I can't feel anything, try as I may. Here on the camera you can see those two stainless grub screws there. There's one and there's the other, and they've deteriorated to the point where there's no head, or there's no head left to put an Allen wrench in there. And I've tried, and again I'm just really working by feel here. I'm trying to stick an Allen key in there thinking that there's something to pull out, and unfortunately there's not. I even went back to the boat and got a magnifying glass to try to see a little bit better. That helped somewhat, but still wasn't that great, and it was basically just enough to be able to tell that there was really nothing left there for an Allen wrench to grab a hold of to take those out. And it wasn't long after this that I realized that this is pretty much futile. Okay, day 2, trying to get the Cutless bearing out of BA here. Yesterday we got the prop off. That's about as far as we got. Went to take the grub screws out of the strut, and there's not much left of them to even get the Allen key in. So today, what I looked yesterday, asked around everybody if anybody had a underwater drill, and of course nobody has one. So this is what I've come up with: is a pneumatic drill. I've got an easy out here. Drill this. We'll flip this around, and hopefully get these two grub screws out, and then get the Cutless bearing out. So yeah, come along. We'll see how this goes. I don't know how it's gonna work. That goes. The freaking little cheapo glasses in there. Well, you're sideways. Make people nauseous. Oh, that hurts. Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, that's right in my forehead. Shit.
I'll have to break him in two.
Oh no, that'll work right there.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The glasses were kind of bearable at that point, but between the mass squeeze from the pressure and just being underwater for a long period of time, after a while with that, I can tell you that my the bridge of my nose and my temple and forehead are really sore even days later after doing this. Now this pneumatic drill, it requires about 4 CFM of air and about a 20-pound reserve tank. And we're running off I think a 2.75 cubic inch pancake compressor. It has about a 2-3 gallon reserve. It's not very big, which is also why I'm just breathing off of the compressor right now. Catherine's free diving, so we can save on the air, and I'm actually trying to hold my breath as much as I can, and I have to stop every once in a while to let the compressor build air pressure back up again. But it's getting it done. The first grub screw drilled pretty easy, and I started on the second one and had a heck of a time, and then I went back to the first one. Here I just got the first grub screw out, so proof of concept, it definitely was going to work. I think this one's getting dull. I drilled the first one, but it's not drilling the second one. So that's pretty close to that size. And I'm hoping, I don't know, if this doesn't work, maybe I can grab it with this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I drilled and drilled on that thing what seemed like, geez, I don't know, half an hour. I eventually ended up breaking my bit, and we went over to Catherine's boat and grabbed some bits that she had, and I found a small sharp one. Here I'm back with trying the easy out again, but we got one from her boat, and I was able to finally get it drilled. Now here I'm trying to knock the rubber part of the cutlass bearing back into the bronze tube, and if you don't know, this piece of rubber is supposed to be bonded to the bronze tube that goes inside the cutlass bearing, and this is the problem. This is the whole reason why we're doing this here, working on it. But it's back for so long that there's growth that's built up on the shaft and built up on the bronze tube inside the strut. So I'm having to kind of like work it back and forth, keep working it back and forth. Get the tool back out here again, try to knock it back up in there a little bit further, back and forth, you know. And eventually I got it back into place. Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that up to this point the rubber was stuck on the shaft and was spinning inside of the bronze tube on the strut, which is really my biggest concern, is that eventually that rubber might wear through that thin bronze tube and into the strut, and it didn't cause damage to the strut. But eventually, once I finally got it all the way back in, the rubber had locked into the bronze tube inside the strut, and now the prop shaft was spinning inside of the rubber as it should normally do. So now it's fast approaching the moment of truth if this tool that I made here to try to drive out the cutlass bearing out of the strut is going to work or not. Basically what I did is I made a little slide hammer here that I'm hoping I'm going to be able to drive this cutlass bearing out of the strut. There is couple tools that they make to do this out of the water, and this is a hard enough job really when you're even out of the water on the hard to get this thing out, and the store-bought tools are extremely expensive. Hopefully I can borrow one from somebody when I'm down in Guatemala. If not, I'll probably have to make my own. But I don't know that I'm gonna be able to drive it out with this slide hammer arrangement. I'm gonna have to make something more like the prop puller, where there's some threaded, long thread, all thread with nuts to where I can put some pressure on it and pull it out. But the biggest problem I'm having here is I cannot see if the slide hammer is hitting the tube on the Cutless bearing, or if it's hitting the strut. And even though I have my glasses on, my visibility still isn't really all that great. It's better than nothing, but at this point I kind of figured I'm going to err on the side of caution. So I took the prop back to shore, and I'm going to go ahead and clean it off. I went, picked up some parts. I got some replacement grub screws, and I bought a donut zinc to put behind the strut to keep that piece of that rubber from backing out as far as it has been. Again, like I said, at this point I figure I'm going to err on the side of caution rather than take a chance and screw something up in the water where I really can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and just put it back together, and I'll address this when I haul the boat out in Guatemala to do some bottom work. But I think that's really the prudent thing to do at this point. So this is sped up, I think 9 or 10 times normal speed. My main goal here was not to polish or clean the prop. I figure again I'll do that when I haul the boat out. I actually bought some prop speed to give that a try. I'm just trying to smooth the prop out so that it's more efficient in the water, rather than polish it and clean it, because like I said, it's going to be not that much longer before I haul out and do all this again. So everything went back together smoothly. I had already put the grub screws in. I think that was like the first thing I did. Grabbing this board. Had a heck of a time. I really would have liked to got this tighter than what I did, but I'm fairly confident I got it plenty tight enough. I just don't like the fact that that jam nut is encapsulated. But it is what it is, and that's the way the boat's been the whole time I've ever owned it. Probably came that way from the factory as well. Yes, I am reusing the cotter pin I took out. Unfortunately, I forgot to buy one when I went to the marine supply store. So it is what it is. I mean, it's still in good shape. It's it's just there as a safety measure. It's not really doing a whole lot. I also should mention too that I went to West Marine and they did not have the grub screws I needed, and they didn't even have. They had hardly anything in stock for zincs. So I went down the street to, I believe it's called Key West Marine Hardware, or I don't know, the locals call it Cubanitos. And if you're ever in Key West and you need boat parts, I highly recommend that place. The prices can be a little bit more on some things, but they're pretty fair. And I will say this, they have got stuff that you will not find anywhere else in Key West. So if you don't want to waste a lot of time driving around looking for stuff, just go there first. They've almost always got it. And if they don't have it in stock, they pretty much get it for you within a day or two. A great marine supply place. So check out Cubanitos, or again, it's Key West Marine Hardware, I think is what it's called. It's right down the street from, I think it's about 4 buildings down from where the West Marine is in Key West. Like I said, they didn't even have this donut zinc. I had to get everything over at the other place. So that's it. Everything's back together. Everything looks good. I have no doubt be no problems getting the 700 miles here from Key West down to Guatemala with that Band-Aid there that got put together. So yeah, we'll see you again. later video. Take her easy. Peace out.